end of our month, reflecting together on the theme of sacred space. It has been meaningful to me, and I hope also to you, to consider those places that draw us into a sense of awareness of the transcendent aspect of life, where that mystery behind the ordinary gets revealed to us and changes us, maybe shakes us up a little bit or a lot, and awakens us to the fact that there is a life to everything that shines and vibrates and calls out and connects. Sacred space, when we encounter it, announces itself, there is more here than meets the eye. Of course, the very earth is sacred. What else could it be? The image of our beautiful blue planet that has been familiar since 1972 hangs in many of our Unitarian Universalist sanctuaries. A beautiful, peaceful image, calling to mind what the United States astronaut Edgar Mitchell remarked when he saw our planet from space, and he said, "My view of our planet was a glimpse of divinity." I'm sure that each one of us could choose an aspect of our life here on earth that makes them feel the presence of something holy, the presence of God by whatever name. Some of you might say, my most holy thing is the seasons themselves, because they correspond with the journey of life from youth to maturity to old age. And I think of a friend of mine who refers to extreme old age as being that fragile leaf that is going to drop gently, hopefully gently, back to earth. Some of you would say the ocean is where I really experienced the divine, all that drama and that power and immensity of it. Some of you would say it happens for me when I gaze at the sky and the eternity that I see there, the infinity and that mind-boggling cosmic sensibility it awakens in me. I myself would probably say flowers, because that wasteful beauty, color, and design sprinkled around for nothing but pleasure and joy and adornment. When I have days where it's hard to believe in anything beyond the mechanistic drudge, I see flowers and I think, they don't really have any earthly purpose in looking that beautiful. Something in creation loves beauty for beauty's sake. And you know what? Knowing that and just sensing that, I can go on. I really can't stand here and give you a sermon on the earth as sacred space without acknowledging with you the truth about where we are as a species, where we stand in relation to our sacred space, the holy ground on which we live and move and have our being. You know the news. You know that last weekend, something like 300,000 people marched in New York City for the People's Climate Walk. And this is something that is happening, this climate walk, it's happening all over the world. We're one interdependent system after all. And it's kind of funny to say, oh, we love planet Earth, because how can you not love something that is your own body, that is your own breath, that is your own life and limb? How could any human creature reside on a planet and not understand that they are of the same substance as where they stand? To explain that bifurcation, that alienation that we have from our planet, I would probably have to go back at least to the scientific era, the beginning of the scientific method in the 16th century, where Francis Bacon, to whom we owe a lot in terms of understanding a lot about the world, but he said famously that one must torture the earth to get her to reveal her secrets, the way that one tortures a witch. Or perhaps I could go even farther back in identifying how we became split from our own planet, all the way back to the Bible tradition, to one passage in Genesis, which some take literally, that says that God gives human beings dominion over the earth. And this has given some people permission to see themselves as new Adams. And I mean A-D-A-M, not A-T-O-M, with the power to name and rule over every aspect of creation. Of course, there are many, many other passages in the Bible which speak to human beings' responsibility to have stewardship with the earth, which is very different than having dominion over. Those two attitudes, torturing the secrets out of the earth and having dominion over it, obviously are not holistic approaches to living with reverence on our planet. We are still torturing the earth, not only for secrets, but for natural resources and energy and pretty shiny things. In 2004, for an Earth Day service, I created a character called Bummer Earth to counter the magnanimous Mother Earth, of whom we often speak, that anthropomorphized version of our planet who is endlessly forgiving and endlessly renewing. I drew a picture of Bummer Earth with, I made a big blue planet, but with big scowling eyes and crossed eyebrows and a big attitude. And for some reason, my Bummer Earth had the same New York Jewish humor and sass that I remember in my elderly relations as a child. Bummer Earth rides a bicycle, and she screams and weeps riding down 1A every morning, seeing the commuters riding into the city, one person in each car, a big Dunk's coffee cup in the hand, knowing that each person in that car has a closet full of clothes, probably lives in a fairly large house that houses a few people, sometimes two houses, electricity running like blazes all day for everyone, and all kinds of packaging for every product that each one buys by the bagful and the cartful on a regular basis. Bummer Earth wants to give us all horrible nightmares until we wake up and see what we're doing. Now, I talk to Bummer Earth a lot, and she knows about Unitarian Universalist theology, and she says, listen, I know you people don't do sin and guilt and the shame thing, but that motivates people. Well, that was in 2004 when I first heard and imagined the voice of Bummer Earth and brought her to the imagination of the Ballou Channing District of Congregations. But it's been 10 years now, you know, and I wonder about that motivating people by sin and shame and guilt. Today I would argue with Bummer Earth, and I would talk to her about our Universalist heritage and our Universalist forebears out of this congregation who worshiped in the churches that became the UU Church of Greater Lynn, and what motivated them. It was never guilt and shame. In fact, the foundational faith conviction of the Universalists, of universalism, has always been that you can't get human beings to be good and moral by threatening them with hell, but by preaching and worshiping a God or an idea of the divine that is benevolent and loving and wants us to respond in kind. Preaching that all human beings are freely granted grace and acceptance by that God, by the universe. In one very famous quote attributed to the Universalist minister John Murray, "Give them not hell, but hope." So today I might say to Bummer Earth, no, we don't do the apocalyptic judgment day thing, and we don't do the guilt and shame and the end is coming, because you know what we do? We do the hope thing. I was so glad to share this idea with a friend of mine, the retired minister Judy Wells, who was actually supposed to be here this morning, and I hope she didn't get lost, but she's visiting from Portland, Oregon, and she introduced me to the work of a Buddhist eco-philosopher named Joanna Macy. Is anybody familiar with Joanna Macy's work? Okay, well, she's wonderful stuff. And Joanna Macy has taken up this basic conviction that is a universalist conviction, and she's addressed the ecological crisis from that place of hope in her book, Active Hope, How to Face the Mess We're In Without Going Crazy. So the title says a lot. Joanna Macy gives us a kind of a map or framework that she refers to as the 3 stories that help us describe the conditions we see around us. And the thing is at any given time, we move between those 3 stories. So there's first the business as usual story, right? You know this one. This is the assumption that, for instance, promoting consumption is good for the economy. Economic growth is essential for prosperity. Life is too short to not have what I want. Big houses and cars symbolize success. Business as usual is a story of non-involvement and of denial. And Joanna Macy identifies 7 messages that we tell ourselves that get us stuck in that story. And these are messages we might tell ourselves about the environmental crisis or really about anything. You might apply them to anything in your lives. But these are the messages we tell ourselves when we're faced with something that seems too big to change or improve. Number 1, I don't believe it's that dangerous. Number 2, it isn't my job to sort this out. 3, I don't want to really make waves. I don't want to stand out from the crowd. 4, this information threatens my commercial or political interests. 5, it's so upsetting I don't want to think about it. I think some of you relate to that, yeah? Number 6, and very similar to number 5, I feel paralyzed. I'm aware of the danger, but I don't know what to do. 7, really, why bother? It's not going to make any difference. And I would add one more, and this is a strictly religious one that some people have believed, which is the end days are coming, so it doesn't matter. In fact, this is the plan as it's supposed to unfold. So the second big story we get involved in is called the Great Unraveling. And this is the one that wakes you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, when you think about your children and your children's children, and you go, oh my God. And the Great Unraveling story is extinction, destruction of habitats and entire ecosystems, social division and war, all living things, human and animal, suffering, starving, experiencing great privation, dramatic climate events like Hurricane Katrina coming from the oceans warming, droughts, water crises, more economic depression. If you get stuck in that story, it's a really, really hard place to be. But there's a third story that Joanna Macy invites us to enter into. It's called the Great Turning. And here I'm going to quote her. The Great Turning involves the transition from a doomed economy of industrial growth to a life-sustaining society committed to the recovery of our world. This transition is already well underway. When I'm reading this, I'm like, yay! In the early stages of major transitions, the initial activity might seem to exist only at the fringes. Yet when their time comes, ideas and behaviors become contagious. The more people pass on inspiring perspectives, the more these perspectives catch on. At a certain point, the balance tips and we reach critical mass. Viewpoints and practices that were once on the margins become the new mainstream. We are already in the Great Turning, says Macy, and I really hope she's right. She says that the Great Turning isn't really something that's being reported because it's small and steady. And there aren't really big events around it that the media can report on because the Great Turning is about cultural shifts. And sometimes you don't see how much is happening because you're not really able to stand back and see the big picture. Now, you all may agree or disagree that the sacred space we walk upon and dwell upon and take our nourishment from is doomed or is destined to recover from the stresses humanity has subjected it to. I'm not going to argue with you either way because I don't know. You know, I enter into the different stories on different days myself. But what I want to argue here is that we participate in a story every day, and we help shape it. And we can do so in a way that is influenced and guided by our own universalist tradition of hope and trust in the goodness of human beings and their ability to morally improve, which is also a tremendously foundational Unitarian faith claim, as well as being influenced by, in the words of our own second source of faith, prophetic men and women which challenge us, as Joanna Macy has challenged me, and perhaps you, by encouraging me to take up a narrative of hope and possibility in favor of a narrative of either business as usual or that cranky negativity and nihilistic viewpoint of bummer earth. Joanna Macy encourages us to honor our feelings, those feelings of grief and hopelessness, as natural responses to what reality is, as natural responses to the defilement of our planet and our role and our complicity in that. But to trust also the shared wisdom and energy flowing between our bodies and the Earth's body by respecting the importance of inspiration and what she calls visionary signals from our larger ecological self. Beautiful thing to say. Visionary signals from our larger ecological self, which is about the interdependent web that we're part of. We can trust those signals that speak to us from that mystical oneness that we're part of. Finally, Joanna Macy makes a commitment that you may choose to adopt for yourselves and that our church may also choose to embrace as a congregational ethos. She writes, "I vow to myself and to each of you to commit myself daily to the healing of our world and the welfare of all beings, to live on earth more lightly and less violently in the food, products, and energy I consume, to draw strength and guidance from the living earth, the ancestors, the future generations, and my brothers and sisters of all species, to support others in our work for the world, and to ask for help when I need it, and to pursue a daily practice that clarifies my mind, strengthens my heart, and supports me in observing those vows." Right now, we are in that place of openness and receptivity and peacefulness, which is the perfect environment out of which sincere prayers can arise from our hearts. So let us share a time in silence for those prayers to be made through us into the universe, where our faith informs us that they can become a real and precious renewable energy source that sustains us and shapes our future. Amen.
We'll begin the closing of our service today by singing hymn number 21, "The Beauty of the Earth."
So
It isn't very far as highways lie. I might be back by nightfall, having seen the rough pines and the stones and the clear water. Friends argue that I might be wiser for it. They do not hear that far-off Yankee whisper, "How dull we grow from hurrying here and there." Many have gone and think me half a fool to miss a day away in the cool country. Maybe. But in a book I read and cherish, going to Walden is not so easy a thing as a green visit. It is the slow and difficult trick of living and finding it where you are.